I never thought I'd be sitting here writing this story. The signs were always there, like pieces of a puzzle I refused to complete. Looking back now, I can trace the pattern that led to that final moment with my cell phone shattered across our kitchen floor. But let me start from the beginning. Not the very beginning of our relationship, when everything seemed perfect, but from the day I first noticed something wasn't quite right. It was during Stella's wedding, 3 years into my marriage with Carter. I had been asked to be a bridesmaid, and the preparations consumed much of my time. Carter seemed supportive at first, even encouraging me to help with the planning. But then came the subtle comments, the slight narrowing of his eyes whenever I mentioned the wedding. "Don't you think you're spending too much time with them?" he asked one evening, his voice carrying that tone I'd come to recognize. Gentle on the surface, but with an undercurrent of steel. "I miss having you around." I smiled, touched by what I interpreted as loneliness. "It's just until the wedding," I assured him, reaching for his hand. "Besides, Stella's been my friend since college." "That was before you were married," he replied, pulling his hand away. "Things are different now. We're a family." The way he emphasized family should have been my first warning. It wasn't just about missing me, it was about ownership, but I didn't see it then. Instead, I found myself making excuses to Stella about missing some of the planning sessions. I started leaving the bridal party meetings early, my stomach churning with anxiety if I stayed too long. The wedding day itself became a turning point, though I didn't realize it at the time. I was helping Stella with her dress when my phone buzzed for the 10th time in an hour. Carter's messages grew increasingly demanding. "Where are you exactly? Who's in the room with you? Send me a photo." Stella noticed my distraction. "Everything okay, Millie?" she asked, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror as she adjusted her veil. "Yeah, just Carter checking in," I replied, typing another quick response to assure him I was just with the bride. Stella's next words hit me like a splash of cold water. "You know, you apologize a lot more than you used to." "What do you mean?" "For everything. For being here. For taking time with friends. For laughing too loud." She turned to face me, her wedding dress rustling. The Millie I knew in college never apologized for taking up space. I felt my cheeks burn and quickly changed the subject, but her words nested somewhere deep in my mind. They would resurface later, during quieter moments, when I found myself shrinking to fit into the increasingly narrow space Carter allowed me to occupy. The changes were so gradual that they felt almost natural. First, it was the subtle criticism of my friends. Then came the questions about my workplace, especially regarding male colleagues. Carter had a way of making his control seem like care, his jealousy like devotion. "I just worry about you," he'd say, his voice soft with concern. "You're too trusting." I started dressing differently, choosing clothes that wouldn't attract attention. I changed my route to work to avoid a coffee shop where Carter once saw me chatting with a male barista. I deleted my social media accounts because it was better for our marriage to maintain privacy. Then came the financial control. It started with suggestions about joint accounts, reasonable enough for a married couple. But soon I found myself having to explain every purchase, no matter how small. "We need to be careful with our money," he'd say, examining the receipts I dutifully brought home. "We're building a future here." My salary went directly into our joint account, which he managed. The irony was that Carter made 3 times what I did as a software engineer, but money became his tool for tracking my movements, questioning my decisions, and ultimately, controlling my independence. Rachel from accounting noticed. She'd see me hesitate over buying lunch, calculating whether the expense would trigger an interrogation at home. One day, she invited me to her office and closed the door. "I have some experience with this," she said quietly, sliding a business card across her desk. It was for a financial advisor, just in case you ever need someone to talk to. I put the card in my wallet, behind my ID, and thanked her. But I didn't call. Not then. I told myself I was being oversensitive, that every marriage had its challenges, that Carter just showed love differently. After all, he never hit me. He never even raised his voice. Not until that final night with my phone. But sitting here now, I realize that violence doesn't always leave visible bruises. Sometimes it's in the way you gradually stop humming while making breakfast. It's in the calculated steps you take to avoid conflict, in the careful selection of words that won't trigger hours of questioning. It's in the friendships that slowly fade because maintaining them becomes too exhausting to explain, too difficult to navigate through the minefield of his suspicions. I just didn't know how deeply I'd lost myself until my sister's call that changed everything. Looking back, I should thank Carter for that moment of uncontrolled rage with my phone. It was the first time he let his mask slip completely, the first time I couldn't explain away his behavior as love or concern. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you about that night, you need to know about Paisley, the friend who changed everything, the one person I kept secret from Carter, and how sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. I met Paisley in the most ordinary way possible, waiting in line at the pharmacy, both of us clutching prescriptions for sleeping pills. It was one of those rare moments when Carter was out of town for a conference, and I had stopped at a pharmacy far from our neighborhood. I always did this when he traveled, visiting places where I wouldn't run into anyone who knew us. These small acts of rebellion were my way of breathing, even if just for a moment. "First time?" Paisley asked, nodding at the prescription in my hand. Her voice was warm, with a slight accent I couldn't place. I startled, unused to casual conversation with strangers. Carter had made sure of that. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled, crow's feet crinkling at the corners of her eyes. "You have that look, like you're not sure if you're doing the right thing." "I just haven't been sleeping well," I said, then wondered why I was explaining myself to a stranger. "Neither has my daughter," Paisley replied, her smile fading slightly. "Ever since she left her husband." Something in the way she said it made me look at her more closely. She was older than me, maybe in her mid-50s, with silver streaks in her dark hair that she didn't try to hide. There was strength in her presence, but also a gentleness that made me want to keep talking. "Did it help?" I asked. "The pills?" "The pills? No." She shook her head. "What helped was finding people who understood, who didn't judge." The pharmacist called her name then, and as she turned to leave, she pressed a business card into my hand. "I run a book club," she said. "Tuesday afternoons. We're reading books about women's journeys. You might find it interesting." I stood there, staring at the card long after she'd gone. "The Page Turners Book Club," it read, with an address in a part of town I rarely visited. I should have thrown it away immediately. Carter always said book clubs were just excuses for gossip, but something made me slip it into my wallet, behind Rachel's financial advisor card, my growing collection of lifelines I wasn't ready to use. 2 weeks later, during another of Carter's business trips, I found myself standing outside a small community center, Paisley's card clutched in my hand. My heart was pounding as if I was about to commit a crime. In a way, I was, at least in Carter's world. "You came," Paisley said, opening the door before I could change my mind. Inside, 4 other women sat in comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. No one asked for my name. No one asked why I was there. They just made space, offered tea, and began discussing Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I didn't say much that first day, but I listened, really listened, to stories about women walking away from everything they knew, about finding strength in wilderness, both literal and metaphorical, about rebuilding life from scratch. As weeks passed, I created elaborate systems to attend these meetings. I told Carter I was taking extra shifts at work. I kept a change of clothes in my office. I became an expert at lying, something that both shamed and empowered me. Paisley never pushed me to share, but she had a way of asking questions that made me think. "What did you think about the protagonist's choice?" she'd ask during discussions, her eyes meeting mine with understanding. We weren't just talking about books, and we both knew it. One Tuesday, after everyone else had left, I broke down. I told her about the phone tracking app Carter had installed for my safety, about the cameras in our house that he monitored from work, about how he would test me by calling our landline when I was supposed to be home, timing how long it took me to answer. "You know," Paisley said quietly, "my daughter's husband did the same things." That's when she told me about Anna, her daughter who had escaped an abusive marriage 2 years ago, how Paisley had helped her plan, gather resources, create a new life, how she'd started this book club afterward, creating a safe space for women who needed one. "Sometimes," she said. The hardest part isn't leaving. It's believing you deserve to leave. I started looking forward to these Tuesday afternoons more than anything else in my life. They became my sanctuary, the one place where I didn't have to pretend. The other women shared their stories too. Susan, who left her emotionally abusive partner of 20 years. Maria, who was still gathering courage. Beth, who had rebuilt her life and now helped others do the same. But it was Paisley who became my closest confidant. We developed a system of communication that would have impressed spy agencies. I had a burner phone hidden in my office desk that I only used to text her. We met sometimes during lunch breaks in crowded places where we wouldn't be noticed. She helped me start squirreling away small amounts of money, teaching me how to withdraw cash in ways that wouldn't show up suspiciously on statements. It's not about whether you'll leave, she would say. It's about having options when you need them. I didn't know then how soon I would need those options. Didn't realize that my sister's call and Carter's reaction would be the catalyst that finally broke everything open. But looking back, I understand that Paisley wasn't just giving me practical help. She was helping me rebuild my sense of self, one Tuesday afternoon at a time. The last time I saw her before everything fell apart, she said something I'll never forget. Strength isn't about not being afraid, Millie. It's about being afraid and choosing yourself anyway. I had no idea that I would be testing that strength sooner than I imagined, or that Paisley would become not just my friend, but my salvation. But first, I had to survive the night that would change everything. The night my phone shattered across our kitchen floor, and with it, the last of my illusions about my marriage. The day my phone shattered started like any other. I had followed my usual routine, making Carter's favorite breakfast, laying out his clothes, triple-checking that everything was perfect. Perfect meant safe. Perfect meant peaceful. At least, that's what I had convinced myself over the years. I wasn't expecting my sister Lisa to call. We hadn't spoken in months, not since Carter had convinced me that she was trying to cause problems in our marriage. But that afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, my phone lit up with her name. My hands trembled as I answered. Lisa? Millie? Her voice cracked. God, I've missed you. I've been so worried. I glanced at the clock. Carter wouldn't be home for another hour. I've missed you too, I whispered, feeling tears well up. Mom's sick, Millie. Cancer, she's been asking for you. The wooden spoon I was holding clattered to the floor. Mom was sick? How long had she been sick? How much had I missed, locked in this carefully controlled world Carter had built around me? How long? I managed to ask. 3 months. We've been trying to reach you. Your emails bounce back. You never answer calls, and when we came by the house, Carter said, the front door slammed. My blood turned to ice. Carter wasn't supposed to be home yet, but there he was, standing in the kitchen doorway, his face darkening as he took in the scene. Me on the phone, dinner preparation abandoned, tears on my cheeks. Who is that? His voice was eerily calm. Lisa was still talking. Millie, are you there? Please, we need you. Mom needs... Carter crossed the kitchen in 2 strides. I barely saw his hand move before my phone was ripped away. I watched, as if in slow motion, as he hurled it against the wall. The sound of plastic and glass shattering seemed to echo forever. No more, he roared, his face contorted with a rage I'd never seen before. I will not have you communicating with your family anymore. They only make you a rebel. I stood there, frozen, staring at the pieces of my phone scattered across our pristine kitchen floor. Among the shards, I could still hear Lisa's tiny voice calling my name before the battery fell out, silencing her forever. Carter was still shouting, but something had changed inside me. As I looked at my shattered phone, my last connection to my family, to my dying mother, a strange calm settled over me. I thought about Paisley's words. Strength isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and choosing yourself anyway. Clean this up, Carter demanded, his rage settling into the cold control I knew so well. And don't even think about getting another phone. You don't need one. You have the landline for emergencies, and I'm the only emergency contact you need. I nodded, already moving to get the broom. My compliance seemed to satisfy him. He didn't notice that my hands had stopped shaking, that my tears had dried. He didn't realize that something fundamental had shifted, that in destroying my phone, he had finally broken the spell he held over me. That night, I played my role perfectly. I cleaned up the phone pieces, finished making dinner, listened to his lecture about family loyalty, and how mine had never supported our marriage. I nodded in all the right places, kept my eyes appropriately downcast, apologized when expected. But as he slept beside me that night, I lay awake, my mind crystal clear for the first time in years. I thought about my mother, sick and asking for me. I thought about Lisa, desperately trying to reach me. I thought about all the Tuesday afternoons with Paisley and the other women, about their stories of escape and renewal. Most importantly, I thought about the burner phone hidden in my office desk, and about Paisley's words, "It's about having options when you need them." I waited until Carter's breathing deepened into sleep before slipping out of bed. Years of walking on eggshells had taught me how to move silently. I went to our home office and opened his laptop. I had watched him enter his password so many times, my fingers knew the pattern. First, I forwarded all the emails from my family that he had intercepted to an account he didn't know about. Then I found them. The documents Paisley had helped me prepare over the past months, scanned and hidden in a folder disguised as work projects. My hands moved swiftly, methodically, as I gathered what I would need. Birth certificate, social security card, bank statements, the small stash of cash I'd been collecting, a few photos I couldn't bear to leave behind, all into a bag I'd hidden in the back of my closet weeks ago. I changed into dark clothes, practical shoes, everything else I left behind, the designer clothes he'd chosen for me, the jewelry that marked me as his, the life I'd been slowly suffocating in. In the kitchen, I picked up one small piece of my shattered phone and slipped it into my pocket. A reminder. The next day, I knew Carter would wake up to find me gone. He would be confused at first, then angry. He would call my office, only to learn I had taken a personal day. He would check the cameras, seeing nothing but me leaving for work at my usual time. Footage from last week that I had learned to loop thanks to a skill I'd picked up from one of Paisley's connections. But by then, I would be unreachable. Not running away, but running toward something. Toward my family. Toward my dying mother. Toward myself. As I closed our front door for the last time, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. And underneath the fear and uncertainty, there was something else. Something that felt a lot like freedom. Dawn was just breaking as I drove away, following the escape route Paisley and I had planned so carefully. I had no phone for Carter to track, no credit cards for him to trace, and a destination he would never suspect. Because while he had been so focused on keeping me away from my family, he had never thought to worry about the quiet woman who ran a book club on Tuesday afternoons. The first 48 hours of freedom felt like walking through a dream. Paisley had taken me to her daughter Anna's old apartment, a small studio above a bookstore in a neighborhood Carter would never think to look. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had finally found shelter in a place filled with the stories of other women's journeys. "The owner owes me a favor," Paisley explained as she unlocked the door. "She lets women stay here sometimes, when they need to. Disappear for a while." The apartment was tiny, but clean, with a window overlooking a busy street. There was something comforting about the constant flow of people below, all those lives continuing normally while mine had been turned upside down. A single bed, a small kitchenette, and a bathroom. It wasn't much, but it felt like a palace compared to the gilded cage I'd left behind. That first night, I barely slept. Every footstep in the hallway made my heart race. Every car horn from the street below had me rushing to the window, convinced it was Carter. I kept reaching for my phone, a habit born from years of having to respond to his messages instantly, only to remember that my phone lay in pieces on our kitchen floor. Paisley brought me a new burner phone the next morning, along with groceries and a change of clothes. "First thing," she said, setting everything down on the small table, "we need to call your sister." My hands shook as I dialed Lisa's number. What if she was angry? What if she blamed me for disappearing? But when she answered and heard my voice, she just burst into tears. "Millie? Oh my God, Millie, where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm safe," I assured her, my own tears falling. "I'm so sorry, Lisa, about everything. About Mom. She's holding on, Lisa said. She's been so worried about you. We all have. After that call yesterday, when it cut off, Millie, what happened? I told her everything. About Carter's control, about the phone, about Paisley and the escape plan. Lisa listened, occasionally making sounds of distress or anger. I knew something was wrong, she said finally. We all did. But Carter always had explanations, and you seemed to support everything he said. We should have tried harder to reach you. No, I said firmly, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. This isn't your fault. It's not even my fault. It's his. After the call, I sat by the window for a long time, watching the world go by. My mind kept drifting to Carter. Had he discovered I was gone yet? What story would he tell people? How would he explain my absence at work, to our neighbors, to his family? Paisley had helped me email my resignation letter that morning, something we'd prepared weeks ago. Keep it professional, she had advised. No explanations, no emotions, just the facts. She had also helped me contact a lawyer who specialized in domestic abuse cases, someone who could help me navigate the legal aspects of what would come next. But the hardest part wasn't the practical challenges. It was the constant battle in my own mind. One moment I felt powerful, free, ready to reclaim my life. The next, I was doubting everything. Had I overreacted? Was I being dramatic? Carter had never hit me, after all. Maybe if I went back now, apologized. It's normal to feel this way, Paisley assured me when I confessed these thoughts. Anna went through the same thing. Abuse isn't just physical. It's about power and control. He controlled your money, your relationships, your movements. That's abuse, Millie. On my third day of freedom, I ventured outside for the first time. Paisley had brought me a hat and sunglasses, and I wore clothes unlike anything Carter would have approved of. Loose jeans and a comfortable sweater instead of the fitted dresses he preferred. The bookstore below became my sanctuary. The owner, Phoebe, was a friend of Paisley's and knew my situation. She let me browse for hours, never pressuring me to buy anything. I found myself drawn to books about women's experiences, about survival and recovery. I read their stories voraciously, finding pieces of myself in their words. It was in the bookstore that I had my first panic attack. I was reading near the window when a man who looked like Carter walked by. He didn't even glance inside, but I found myself unable to breathe, my heart racing so fast I thought it might explode. Phoebe found me huddled between the shelves, gasping for air. Focus on my voice, she said calmly, sitting beside me. Name 5 things you can see right now. Books, I whispered. The green plant by the window, your red glasses, the sale sign, the coffee cup on your desk. Good. 4 things you can touch. Slowly, my breathing steadied. Later, Phoebe shared that she had gone through something similar years ago. Recovery isn't linear, she told me. Some days you'll feel strong, others you'll feel like you're back at square one. Both are okay. That evening, Paisley brought over Chinese food, something Carter had always forbidden because he couldn't control the ingredients. As we sat eating directly from the cartons, she helped me make a plan to visit my mother. We'll need to be careful, she said. The hospital is the first place he'll look. I know, I said, twirling noodles around my fork. But I need to see her. I've missed so much already. Paisley nodded, understanding. We'll make it happen. But first, you need to file the restraining order. I've seen too many women get caught because they rushed to see family before ensuring their legal protection. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the city sounds below, I pulled out the piece of my shattered phone I'd kept. In the dim light, its broken edge caught the streetlight, glinting like a tiny star. I thought about how something broken could still catch the light, still shine. Maybe I was like that too, not ruined by what had happened to me, but transformed into something different, something stronger. Tomorrow, I would begin the legal process. Tomorrow, I would take another step toward reclaiming my life. But tonight, in this small room above a bookstore, surrounded by stories of survival, I allowed myself to simply breathe, to exist in this moment of in-between. No longer a victim, not quite a survivor, but something beautifully, terrifyingly new. The law office of Patricia Fortin didn't look anything like I'd imagined. Instead of intimidating leather chairs and imposing artwork, the waiting room had comfortable couches and walls painted in soothing blues. A small water feature trickled quietly in one corner, and the magazines weren't about business or law, but about healing and personal growth. "I want my clients to feel safe here," Patricia explained when we met. She was a petite woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately put me at ease. Paisley had recommended her, calling her the best advocate for women in situations like yours. I handed Patricia the folder Paisley had helped me prepare. Photos of my shattered phone, screenshots of Carter's tracking apps, copies of emails he'd intercepted, bank statements showing his financial control, and a detailed timeline of incidents I'd documented over the past months. "Paisley taught me to keep records," I explained, "even when I wasn't sure I'd ever use them." Patricia nodded approvingly as she reviewed the documents. "This is excellent documentation. Many women don't have this much evidence when they come to me." She looked up, her expression serious. "But Millie, I need you to understand something. Getting a restraining order is just the first step. The real challenge will be enforcing it." She explained how the process would work, what evidence we'd need to present, and what to expect from Carter's response. "He'll likely try to paint you as unstable or irrational. Men like him often do. They can't accept losing control." As if on cue, my burner phone buzzed with a text from Paisley. Carter had been to my office demanding information about my whereabouts. When the staff said I'd resigned, he'd caused a scene, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and needed help. "See?" Patricia said when I showed her the message. "He's already starting the narrative. This is why we need to file the restraining order immediately." The next few days became a blur of legal paperwork and preparation. Patricia helped me document everything, every email, every incident, every controlling behavior I'd normalized over the years. Seeing it all laid out on paper was overwhelming. How had I not seen the pattern sooner? "Don't go down that road," Paisley warned when she found me crying over the documentation one evening. "Looking back with new eyes is part of healing, but don't let it become self-blame." The hardest part was writing my personal statement for the court. How do you compress years of emotional abuse into a few pages? How do you explain the slow erosion of self, the gradual tightening of control, the way fear becomes as natural as breathing? Patricia suggested focusing on specific incidents. The phone incident is crucial. It shows escalation to physical violence, even if not directed at you personally. And the tracking apps, the financial control, the isolation from family, these are all clear patterns of coercive control. Meanwhile, Paisley and Lisa were working on a plan for me to visit Mom. The hospital was tricky, too public, too many variables we couldn't control. Carter had already been there twice, claiming to be worried about me, asking if I'd visited. "He's watching all the obvious places," Paisley said during one of our planning sessions. "But he doesn't know about the private care facility we're moving Mom to next week." Lisa had arranged everything. Mom would be transferred to a small private facility outside the city, one with excellent security protocols. Their staff was briefed about the situation, and they had experience with similar cases. "The hardest part will be getting you there safely," Paisley explained. "We'll need to be careful about timing, routes, everything. We planned it like a military operation." I would leave the apartment above the bookstore at an unusual hour, wearing a disguise Paisley's daughter Anna had used during her own escape. I would take 3 different buses to reach a rental car registered under Paisley's name. The facility was expecting me at an odd hour, through a staff entrance. But even as we planned, I struggled with waves of anger and grief. Anger at Carter for making me sneak around just to see my sick mother. Grief for all the time I'd lost, all the moments with my family I'd missed. "Use that anger," Patricia advised during one of our meetings. "Channel it into staying strong through the legal process. You'll need that strength." She was right. The day we filed for the restraining order, Carter's response was swift and aggressive. He hired an expensive lawyer who tried to paint me as mentally unstable, claiming Carter was just a concerned husband trying to help his troubled wife. "Let them try that narrative," Patricia said confidently. "We have documentation. We have evidence. We have truth. The night before the hearing for the temporary restraining order, I couldn't sleep. I paced the small apartment, thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if the judge didn't believe me? What if Carter convinced them I was the unstable one? What if— My burner phone buzzed, a message from Anna, Paisley's daughter. The night before my hearing, I thought I was going to throw up from anxiety. But you know what? Walking into that courtroom was the moment I truly became free. Because no matter what the judge decided, I had finally stood up and said, "No more. You've already done the hardest part, Millie. Tomorrow is just making it official." I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. Tomorrow I would face Carter for the first time since leaving. Tomorrow I would tell my story in front of strangers. Tomorrow I would publicly declare what I had finally come to understand: that love shouldn't hurt, that control isn't care, that I deserved better. But tonight, I took out my mother's most recent photo and placed it beside me. Soon, I would see her. Soon, I would hold her hand and tell her everything I'd been forced to keep silent. Soon, I would begin to rebuild all the connections Carter had tried to sever. The piece of my shattered phone still sat on my windowsill, catching the streetlight. But now, instead of seeing it as a symbol of broken things, I saw it as evidence. Evidence of the moment I chose myself. The moment I said enough. The moment I began to break free. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. But tonight, in this small room that had become my sanctuary, I was no longer afraid of broken things. After all, I had learned that sometimes things need to break so they can be rebuilt stronger than before. The courthouse loomed before me, its stone steps seeming to stretch endlessly upward. Paisley stood beside me, a steady presence in the early morning light. We had arrived an hour early to avoid any chance of running into Carter in the parking lot or hallways. "Remember," Patricia said as we walked through security, "you don't have to look at him. Keep your eyes on the judge or on me." We were directed to a small conference room to wait. Patricia spread out our documents one last time, though we'd reviewed everything dozens of times. My hands shook slightly as I sipped water from a paper cup. "He's here," Paisley said quietly, glancing through the door's window, "with his lawyer and some woman I don't recognize." Despite Patricia's advice, I couldn't help looking. Carter walked past our room, immaculate in his favorite charcoal suit. Beside him was a woman who could have been my double from a few years ago. Designer dress, careful makeup, controlled movements. My stomach churned. Had he already replaced me? Found someone new to control? "Focus, Millie." Patricia touched my arm gently. "That's exactly what he wants, to throw you off balance. Remember why we're here." The courtroom was smaller than I expected, more intimate, which somehow made it more intimidating. As we took our seats, I could feel Carter's presence behind me, could practically sense his eyes boring into my back. The familiar urge to make myself smaller, to apologize, to run back to him and beg forgiveness swept over me with surprising force. Then I felt Paisley's hand squeeze mine, and I remembered Anna's words. Walking into that courtroom was the moment I truly became free. The judge, a middle-aged woman with steel-gray hair, called the session to order. Carter's lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a devoted husband desperate to help his troubled wife. They presented carefully selected photos of us looking happy, emails where I'd thanked Carter for taking care of everything, character witnesses praising his generosity and concern. "My client has only ever acted out of love and concern for his wife's well-being," his lawyer concluded smoothly. "These allegations are a result of her recent emotional instability, possibly influenced by her mother's illness and certain negative influences." His eyes flicked to Paisley. When it was our turn, Patricia's approach was methodical. She presented the timeline of control, financial records showing how Carter had gradually taken over all our accounts, records of the tracking apps he'd installed, testimonies from former friends about how I'd slowly withdrawn from their lives. Then came the phone incident. Patricia played the recording from Lisa's phone, those final moments before Carter had destroyed mine. His roar of rage filled the courtroom. "No more! I will not have you communicating with your family anymore." I forced myself to look at Carter then. His face was a mask of controlled concern, but I saw it. That tiny tick in his jaw that always betrayed his anger. Mrs. Walker, the judge addressed me directly. Would you like to make a statement? I stood, my legs shaking but my voice steady. The statement I'd prepared suddenly felt inadequate. Instead, I spoke from my heart. 3 weeks ago, my sister called to tell me our mother has cancer. Instead of being allowed to comfort her, to be there for her, I watched my husband destroy my phone in a rage. That moment clarified everything. I realized that what I'd been calling love was actually fear. What I'd called protection was control. What I'd called marriage was imprisonment. I took a deep breath, feeling stronger with each word. I'm not mentally unstable. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm finally seeing clearly. And what I see terrifies me. Because the man sitting in this courtroom isn't the enraged person who shattered my phone. He's the controlled, calculated man who spent years systematically isolating me, monitoring me, and making me doubt my own sanity. I turned to face Carter directly for the first time. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being controlled. I'm done pretending that love should hurt. The woman beside Carter shifted uncomfortably, and our eyes met briefly. I saw something flicker in her expression. Recognition, perhaps, or fear. I wanted to tell her to run, to save herself before she lost herself like I had. The judge asked several pointed questions about the tracking apps and financial control. Carter's lawyer tried to interrupt, to explain it away as normal marital arrangements, but the judge was persistent. Mr. Walker, she said finally, would you explain why you felt it necessary to monitor your wife's movements through multiple tracking applications? Carter spoke for the first time, his voice carrying that familiar tone of reasonable concern. Your Honor, Millie has always been emotionally fragile. After her father's death 5 years ago, she struggled with decision-making. I was simply trying to protect her. By destroying her phone when her dying mother tried to reach her, I lost my temper. I'm not proud of that moment, but Millie's family has a history of manipulating her emotions. I was trying to shield her from her mother? Who has cancer? The judge's tone could have frozen fire. The temporary restraining order was granted. Carter was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my workplace, and any medical facility where my mother might be receiving treatment. He was also barred from accessing any of our joint accounts pending a full hearing. As we left the courtroom, I heard Carter call my name. That soft, manipulative tone that had once made me doubt everything about myself. But this time, I kept walking, my head high, Paisley on one side and Patricia on the other. In the parking lot, Patricia hurried us to her car, wary of Carter following. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of him in the rearview mirror, standing on the courthouse steps with his lawyer. Even from a distance, I could see the rigid set of his shoulders, the controlled fury in his stance. He's not done, I whispered. No, Patricia agreed, but neither are we. This is just the beginning, Millie. You've taken the first step, and you've done it brilliantly. As we drove away, I thought about the woman who'd been with Carter, wondering if she'd recognize the warning signs sooner than I had. I said a silent prayer for her, hoping she'd find her strength before she lost herself completely. Paisley squeezed my hand. Ready for the next step? I nodded, thinking of my mother waiting in the private care facility. More than ready. It's time to stop hiding and start living. Harfs! But even as I said the words, I knew that Carter's controlled fury in the courtroom meant this was far from over. The restraining order was paper, after all, and paper could burn. The real test would be what came next. The private care facility looked more like a countryside retreat than a hospital. Surrounded by carefully maintained gardens and tall trees, it offered the kind of privacy and security that had become precious to me. Paisley had driven us there using a complicated route, checking repeatedly to ensure we weren't followed. Mom's having a good day, Lisa said, meeting us at the staff entrance. She hugged me tightly, then held me at arm's length, studying my face. You look stronger. I feel stronger, I replied, though my heart was racing. What would Mom think of me? How much did she know? How much had the cancer changed her? The answer came as soon as we entered her room. Mom was sitting in a comfortable chair by the window, wrapped in her favorite blue shawl. She looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile, but her eyes, those sharp, loving eyes that had always seen right through me, were exactly the same. Millie, she breathed, reaching for me. My baby girl. I crossed the room in 3 steps and fell to my knees beside her chair, burying my face in her lap like I used to do as a child. Her hands, thinner but still strong, stroked my hair. I'm so sorry, I sobbed. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. Shh, she soothed. You're here now. That's what matters. We talked for hours. I told her everything. About Carter's control, about Paisley and the book club, about the court hearing. Mom listened, her face a mixture of pain and pride. I knew something was wrong, she said finally. A mother knows. But every time we tried to reach you, Carter had an explanation, and you seemed to confirm everything he said. It was like watching you disappear bit by bit and not being able to stop it. I disappeared even from myself, I admitted. Until that phone call. Until he showed me exactly who he was. Mom's hand tightened on mine. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives become our salvation. When your father died, I thought my world had ended. But that pain taught me about my own strength, just like this is teaching you about yours. A knock at the door interrupted us. It was Patricia, looking uncharacteristically worried. Millie, we need to talk. In the hallway, she showed me her phone. Carter had filed an emergency petition claiming I was mentally unstable and a danger to myself. He was seeking an emergency psychiatric evaluation and temporary guardianship. He's using your mother's illness against you, Patricia explained, claiming the stress has triggered a mental breakdown. He has that woman from court, Jessica, ready to testify that you've been acting erratically. My legs felt weak. Can he do that? He can try. But we're ready for this. Remember all those therapy sessions Paisley arranged when you first left? The therapist's evaluation will be crucial in countering his claims. Back in Mom's room, I tried to hide my distress, but she read it on my face immediately. What's he done now? She asked. As I explained, her face hardened with a determination I remembered from my childhood. Like hell, he's going to take my daughter's freedom again, she declared. Then, to everyone's surprise, she pressed her emergency call button. When the nurse appeared, Mom said firmly, I need to speak with Dr. Harrison immediately. It's about my daughter's safety. Dr. Harrison, it turned out, had been Mom's doctor for months. She arrived within minutes, concern evident on her face. Stella, she addressed my mother. What's wrong? What followed was a masterclass in maternal protection. Mom detailed every visit she'd received from Carter over the past months, his increasingly aggressive demands for information, his attempts to access her medical records claiming to be acting on my behalf. I want it officially documented, Mom concluded, that my daughter is here of her own free will, that she is completely lucid, and that I consider Carter Walker a threat to her well-being. Dr. Harrison took detailed notes, then left to prepare an official statement. When she returned, she had additional security protocols in place for Mom's unit. I've also documented my own observations of Mr. Walker's concerning behavior during his visits, she added. If he attempts to use your mother's illness to manipulate the legal system, we'll be ready. That evening, as visiting hours drew to a close, Mom pulled me close. Next time you visit, bring me some of those books from your club. I want to read the stories that helped my daughter find her strength. On the drive back, Paisley was unusually quiet. Finally, she said, There's something else you need to know. That woman, Jessica, she came to the bookstore today. My heart skipped. What did she want? To talk to you. She left this. Paisley handed me a folded note. I think she might be starting to see the patterns in her own relationship with Carter. I stared at the unopened note, thinking about how Jessica had looked in court, how familiar her carefully controlled movements had been. Should I talk to her? I wondered aloud. What if it's a trick? That's your decision, Paisley said gently. But remember how much it meant when Anna talked to you? Sometimes the best way to heal is to help someone else find their way out. The note sat heavy in my pocket as we drove through the darkening evening. Behind us, my mother was safe in her secured facility. Ahead, another woman might be reaching out for help. And somewhere, Carter was plotting his next move. But for the first time, I didn't feel like prey. Having seen my mother's strength, having witnessed her fierce protection even in her illness, I felt something new growing inside me. Something that felt like my own fierce determination to not only survive, but to thrive. The piece of my shattered phone had a new companion now, a small scrap of blue yarn from Mom's shawl. 2 reminders, one of the moment I chose to break free, and one of the love that had always been waiting to welcome me back. Jessica's note had been simple. I need help. Please, followed by a phone number. I spent 3 days debating whether to call, turning possibilities over in my mind. Paisley and Patricia helped me set up a safe meeting. Neutral ground, security present, escape routes planned. We chose a small cafe where Phoebe's nephew worked as a manager. He arranged a private corner with 2 exits and positioned himself at the counter with a clear view of our table. Paisley and Patricia waited in separate cars outside, watching different exits. Jessica arrived exactly on time, wearing oversized sunglasses despite the cloudy day. She looked thinner than she had in court, her designer clothes hanging slightly loose. As she sat down, I noticed her hands trembling. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said quietly, removing her sunglasses. A fading bruise around her left eye explained the eyewear. My stomach clenched. Carter had escalated to physical violence faster with her than he had with me. He said you were crazy, Jessica continued, staring into her untouched coffee. That you had a breakdown. But then I saw the way he looked at you in court. The way his jaw tightened when you spoke. I recognized that look. She touched her bruised eye unconsciously. I've been seeing it more often lately. How long have you been with him? I asked gently. 4 months. It was like a whirlwind at first. He was so attentive, so concerned about my safety, my well-being. He said he'd been hurt before by someone who didn't appreciate his care. She looked up at me. That was you, wasn't it? The unstable wife who abandoned him? That's his version, I said. Would you like to hear mine? For the next hour, I shared my story. The gradual isolation, the increasing control, the way he'd made me doubt my own perceptions. Jessica's face grew paler as she recognized pattern after pattern. Yesterday, he installed a tracking app on my phone, she whispered. Said it was because he worried when he couldn't reach me. This morning, he got angry because I was 7 minutes late getting to work. He knew exactly how long I'd stopped at Starbucks. Has he asked for access to your bank accounts yet? She nodded. He says we should plan our future together. That marriage means sharing everything. Jessica, I leaned forward, keeping my voice gentle but firm. I need you to understand something. What you're experiencing isn't love. It's not protection. It's control. And it will get worse. He says he loves me, she said, but her voice wavered. Carter doesn't love women. He possesses them. And when they try to break free, I gestured to her bruised eye. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Paisley. He's here. My heart jumped, but years of hiding my feelings helped me maintain a calm exterior. Jessica, don't react. But Carter is outside. Did you tell him about this meeting? Her face went white. No, I used a work friend's phone to call you. My phone. Her eyes widened in realization. The tracking app. Okay, I said calmly. We have a plan for this. Do you trust me? She nodded, tears in her eyes. Take off your jacket, I instructed. Leave your phone in the pocket. Phoebe's nephew appeared at our table with 2 server uniforms. Back exit's clear, he said quietly. Cars waiting. We changed quickly in the staff room, leaving through the kitchen door. Paisley was waiting in her car, engine running. As we pulled away, I saw Carter storming into the cafe's main entrance. He'll be furious, Jessica whispered, huddled in the back seat. Yes, I agreed. But you're not there to absorb that fury anymore. We took her to Anna's old apartment above the bookstore, my former safe haven. As Paisley helped her settle in, my phone rang. Patricia, Carter filed the emergency psychiatric petition, she said without preamble. Hearings tomorrow morning. But Millie, he made a mistake. A big one. What kind of mistake? He submitted evidence of his concern for you, including recordings he'd made of your conversations at home without your knowledge. Recordings that validate everything you've claimed about his controlling behavior. His own evidence proves your case. I felt a laugh bubble up. Slightly hysterical, but genuine. Of course. Carter was so convinced of his own righteousness, so certain he could play the concerned husband, that he'd handed us the proof we needed. There's more, Patricia continued. Jessica's not the first woman since you left. We found 2 others, both with similar stories. They're willing to testify. That evening, sitting in my new apartment, I'd moved from the bookstore room a week ago, I looked at the 2 pieces on my windowsill, the fragment of my shattered phone and the strand of Mom's blue yarn. I added a third, a business card for a domestic violence support group, given to me by Patricia. On the back, I wrote the date and time of tomorrow's hearing. My phone buzzed, a message from Jessica. Thank you for helping me see the truth. I thought about Paisley, who had helped me, about Anna, who had shared her story, about all the women in the book club who had created a safe space for others to heal, the circle of support growing wider, stronger. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Carter wouldn't give up easily. Men like him never do. But his power was diminishing with each woman who broke free, with each story shared, with each truth spoken aloud. I picked up my phone to text Mom's night nurse for an update. The message showed as read immediately, and 3 dots appeared indicating she was typing. But something felt wrong. The night nurse never responded this quickly. Then another message appeared, from an unknown number. Did you really think I wouldn't find a way to reach you? We need to talk, Millie. About your mother. My blood ran cold. Somehow, Carter had found a way into Mom's care facility's communication system. The game wasn't over. It was just moving to a new, more dangerous level. My hands shook as I called Patricia, but my voice remained steady as I explained about Carter's message. Years of handling crisis situations with him had taught me how to function through fear. He's escalating, Patricia said grimly. This is when men like him are most dangerous, when they realize they're losing control completely. Within an hour, we had assembled our response team at Patricia's office. Paisley, Lisa, Dr. Harrison, the facility's security chief, and 2 police officers who specialized in domestic violence cases. The facility had already moved Mom to a secure floor and implemented lockdown protocols. He got access through an IT contractor, the security chief explained. Someone he paid to add him to the facility's messaging system. We've locked it down now, but he's showing us what he's capable of, I finished. That he can still reach us. He wants you scared, Paisley said softly. He wants you running back to him for protection, from himself. I looked around the room at these people who had become my support system, my fortress. I'm done running, I said. It's time to end this. Patricia nodded approvingly. I was hoping you'd say that, because we have a plan. The plan was risky, but simple. Instead of hiding from Carter's threats, we would use them. Every message, every attempt at contact, every move he made now would only strengthen our case. The police officers helped us set up recording equipment and tracking systems. Let him think he's winning, Patricia advised. Let him think you're breaking. I responded to his message. Please don't hurt her. What do you want? His reply came quickly. I want to talk. Just talk. Come home, Millie. You're not well. Look at what you're doing. Hiding, running, taking Jessica away when I was only trying to help her. This isn't you. Each message was documented, traced, added to our growing evidence file. Meanwhile, the psychiatric hearing loomed closer. But now, instead of fearing it, I looked forward to it. Carter had unknowingly given us the perfect stage. The morning of the hearing, I visited Mom first. Her room was now in a secure wing with doubled security, but she seemed unfazed by the precautions. I've been reading those books you brought, she said, gesturing to the stack from Paisley's book club. All these stories of women finding their strength. You're writing your own story now, Millie. Make it a good one. The hearing room was packed. Carter had brought his usual supporters, colleagues who knew his public face, friends who believed his concerned husband act. But we had our own army, Paisley and her book club members, Jessica and the 2 other women who had briefly dated Carter after me, Dr. Harrison, and most importantly, Mom's entire medical team. Carter's lawyer presented their case first, painting a picture of my supposed mental decline. Then came their surprise witness, the IT contractor who had helped Carter infiltrate the care facility's system. But the man seemed nervous, fidgeting as he took the stand. Under questioning, he cracked, admitting that Carter had paid him to gain illegal access. had specifically asked for ways to monitor and control communications. Carter's face remained calm, but I saw that familiar tick in his jaw. When it was our turn, Patricia didn't just present evidence. She told a story of systematic control, of psychological manipulation, of a man so obsessed with power that he would target vulnerable women repeatedly, escalating to physical violence when his other methods failed. Jessica testified about her bruises. The other two women shared similar stories. Dr. Harrison presented records of Carter's increasingly aggressive attempts to access Mom's medical information. Finally, Patricia played the recordings. Carter's own secret recordings of our conversations at home, the ones he had submitted as evidence of my instability. But instead of hearing a delusional wife, the court heard his subtle threats, his manipulation, his steady erosion of my independence. "Mr. Walker," the judge said, looking at Carter directly, "did you submit these recordings believing they would help your case?" "Your Honor," Carter stood, straightening his tie, "these recordings show my consistent efforts to help my wife during her decline. Everything I did was out of love and concern." "Really?" The judge pressed a button, and Carter's voice filled the room again. "If you ever try to leave me, I'll make sure you have nothing and no one. I'm the only one who truly cares about you. The only one who knows how to take care of you." Carter's mask finally cracked. "She needs me," he shouted, his controlled facade crumbling. "Look what she's done since leaving. Hiding like a criminal, poisoning Jessica against me, causing chaos in her mother's care facility. I'm the only one who can protect her from herself." The room fell silent. In that moment of uncontrolled rage, Carter had shown everyone his true face. The judge's ruling was comprehensive. The petition for psychiatric evaluation was denied. The temporary restraining order was made permanent, with additional provisions for Mom's protection. Carter would face criminal charges for his harassment and facility infiltration. As we left the courthouse, Jessica touched my arm. "I'm testifying at the criminal hearing," she said. "We all are." She gestured to the other women. "No more hiding, no more shame." That evening, we gathered at Mom's facility, not in her room, but in the garden. The staff had helped arrange a small celebration. Paisley brought cupcakes. Lisa hung tiny lights in the trees. Mom sat in her favorite chair, wrapped in her blue shawl, beaming at all of us. "To freedom," she toasted, raising her teacup. "To friendship," Paisley added. "To the truth," Jessica said softly. I looked around at these wonderful women. My mother, who never stopped believing in me. My sister, who never stopped trying to reach me. Paisley, who showed me the way out. Jessica, who was finding her own strength. And all the others who had become part of my journey. "To us," I said. "To all of us." Later, as the party wound down, I walked to the garden's edge. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. In my pocket, I felt the familiar shapes, the piece of my shattered phone, the strand of blue yarn, the business card with the hearing date, souvenirs of my journey from victim to survivor to thriver. But I didn't need them anymore. Walking to the garden's stone wall, I took them out one last time. The phone piece, the moment I chose to break free. The yarn, the love that helped me heal. The card, the justice that gave me closure. I left them there, arranged on the wall where the sunset turned them into something beautiful. Someone else might find them, might need these small symbols of hope and transformation. My phone buzzed. A new message, but not a threatening one this time. It was from Paisley. "Book club tomorrow? We're starting a new story." I smiled, typing my reply. Wouldn't miss it. After all, I have my own story to share now. And that's the thing about stories like mine. They don't end with the last page. They continue in the lives we touch, the truths we share, the strength we pass on. Carter tried to make me invisible, but instead, he made me invincible. Not alone, but surrounded by an army of women who understand that the greatest love story isn't about finding a prince, it's about finding yourself. Tomorrow, I would help Jessica prepare for the criminal hearing. Next week, I would speak at Paisley's support group. Next month, I would start volunteering at a women's shelter. The story continues, growing stronger with each telling, each listening, each woman who finds her way to freedom. because now I understand the happy ending isn't about escaping the monster. It's about becoming the hero of your own story.